Hi friends, and welcome to your Yoga Flow. My name is Maria, and today I have a short neck and shoulders focused yoga class. We're going to go through a few stretches to help loosen up any tension that you might have in those areas, whether you work at a desk all day, whether you just generally have a hunched upper back, which isn't necessarily bad, but sometimes you do get tension from those back neck muscles kind of pulling forward. So we're going to keep this short today. All you're going to need is some comfy clothes and then meet me on your mat. We're going to begin in just a seated position, so feel free to have your legs crossed or have one foot in front of the other. Maybe switch it up to what you normally do if you normally have one leg crossed over the other. We're coming into the seated position. Ground down through your sitting bones. Sit up straight, reach the crown of the head up towards the sky. Start to lift the chest just a little bit. And take a big deep breath in. Inhale, fill up the entire low belly and then the chest. And then exhale to pull your belly button in, pull your ribs in, deflate completely. We're going to do one more big inhale, inhaling into the low belly, letting the chest and the shoulders just rest a little bit with that breath. So inhale, low belly. And exhale, belly button squeezes in, ribs come in to let all the air out. From here, leave your hands resting on your thighs. You're going to squeeze your shoulder tips up towards your ears. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Feel all the maybe stretches or sensations or maybe tight spots that you're feeling with this squeeze. Close your eyes if you want to. And then as you start to exhale, start to bring your shoulder tips back towards the back of the room and then roll them down. So you're rolling them away and then down from your ears. One more time. Inhale, squeeze, close your eyes, and then exhale to roll your shoulder tips back, maybe your shoulder blades squeeze back behind you, and then let them rest. We're going to do that 2 more times with the idea of trying to keep the chest level. So don't try to puff it up. We're going to do it 1 more time. So keep the chest, the heart space over the pelvis. Keep your heart over your head, just straight line. And then inhale to take the shoulders up and exhale back around and down. Your shoulder tips are doing all the work here. Inhale up and back and down. Good. Now that we have that little warm up, we're going to come into our hands and feet. So coming into tabletop position, stack your hands and wrists underneath your shoulders and your knees underneath your hips. We're going to start with a couple of cat-cows to help continue opening up through that neck. So on your next inhale, start to drop the belly and lift the tailbone. Push away from the mat here, but at the same time, pull the shoulder tips away from the ears. So this might be a little challenging trying to do all of that at the same time. Don't overly arch your back. Just let your natural breath and your upper back help open up. So send your chest forward, collarbones forward. And then on your next inhale, start to round through the upper back, tuck the tailbone, and round the chin through the chest. Pushing away from the mat here. Maybe your shoulder tips are getting a little closer to your ears in this cat pose. On your next inhale, drop the belly, open up through the chest, push away from the mat and stay tall. Reach your ears and your shoulder tips away from each other. And on your exhale, coming into cat pose, round through, chin to chest, tuck the tailbone. Inhale to take the belly down, chest forward, chin up, tailbone up. And use the exhale to help you turn the tailbone down towards that space between the knees. Push away from the mat, round through the upper back. And then come to neutral position. Ground down through your left hand and start to lift your right fingertips up off the mat, bringing them up to the sky. Option to maybe take your knees a little wider here if you need to. Stacking your right shoulder on top of your left, fingertips reach up. Option to look up towards your right fingertips or to keep your gaze down. Take 1 inhale here. And then as you exhale, start to take your right hand and thread it underneath the left armpit, the left shoulder, the left arm. Bring your right ear and your right shoulder and your right cheek to the mat. We're coming into thread the needle pose. So a little variation here. Again, the knees can stay a little bit wider than the hips, or you can also bring them in. But wherever you are, try to level out the hips and make sure they're not bumping over to the left. Start to walk your left hand forward. You can leave it here next to your face or next to your shoulder. Or option to take your left hand to the opposite corner of the mat to get a little bit of a deeper stretch here through your side body. Take a few more breaths here using the exhale to completely relax, and maybe try to target any areas where you might be feeling tension in your neck. Start to walk your left hand back underneath your left shoulder, push up with your left hand, and unthread your right. Coming back into tabletop position, finding your center, and then push down, ground down with your right hand, spread the fingers wide, push into that pointer finger, knuckle, and thumb, and then start to lift the left hand up to the sky, stacking the left shoulder over top of the right. Take a big inhale, and then on your exhale, thread the left arm underneath the right, bringing the left ear to the mat, left cheek to the mat. Level out your hips, and then option to leave your right arm here or to walk it up towards the front or over to the opposite side. And remember to pull that left hip back or kind of level them out to make sure your hips aren't bumping over to the right. Push down into the tops of your feet. Inhaling into your side ribs, your side body, wherever you can take that breath and make it big. And exhaling to let it all go. Bring your right hand back underneath your right shoulder and push yourself back up to tabletop position. Bring your knees back directly underneath your hips, and then replace your elbows where your hands were. So now your elbows are underneath your shoulders. We're coming into this forearm tabletop position. From here, start to walk your feet back towards the back of the mat until you feel a gentle stretch through the upper shoulders, through the neck, just through the upper back area. We're starting to open up through our thoracic spine. Inhale to fill up the belly as best you can. And then exhale to maybe melt your heart space, your chest, a little bit closer to the earth. Toes can stay tucked under here, or they can be flat, but using a little bit of strength and grounding through your feet, the tops of your feet, or through the toes being curled under to find a little bit of stability here. Draw your elbows towards one another, make sure they're not spreading apart, and ground down through your hands. One more inhale. And then exhale to slowly roll forward. Bringing your hips to the ground, lifting your chest up, and coming into this Sphinx Pose. Walk your arms a little bit towards the front of the mat if that helps. We're only staying in here for a couple of breaths. Push your hips down into the mat. Push the tops of your feet down into the mat. Pull the belly button in and up to protect the low back, and then opening up through the chest. So try to take your chest forward through your arms. Pull your elbows back towards your hips and your hips towards your elbows. One more inhale, and then exhale to come down all the way onto your belly. Push yourself back up into a tabletop position, and then bring your feet to touch, coming into a child's pose. So feel free to sit your hips back onto your heels. Your feet can be, your toes are touching, but your knees can be as wide as the mat here, or they can be touching. So a little bit of kind of openness and release in the hips with your knees open. And then if your knees are together, maybe you get a little bit of release in the low back and sacrum. But the option is yours today. So wherever you are, we're going to do that thread the needle again, but in a child's pose. So stay grounded through that left hand, pick your right hand up, and then thread it underneath the left. Try to rest your forehead on the ground here. You might feel different sensations through maybe your shoulders, the sides of your shoulders, your lower neck. Option to come on to the left side of the forehead. Maybe your ear doesn't touch here, but that's okay. And just breathe. Focusing on those belly breaths to give the chest a little bit of a break here. And when you're ready, unravel, bring your head back to center, and then switch your hands, extend your right hand out straight out in front of you, and take the left arm and thread it underneath the right as best as you can, and whatever feels comfortable. Bring your forehead to the mat, and an option from here to bring your left side of the forehead onto the mat. When you're ready, come back up. Walk your hands back towards your knees, and we're going to come into this kneeling position. So from here, you have the option to come onto the backs of your toes to get a little bit of a stretch and kind of tackle that as well. Or you can stay in this hero pose, or you can just come to a seated position. Whatever works best. We're just going to do a little bit of some seated neck stretches now. So interlace your hands behind your low back. Interlace your fingers, and then start to push your paws maybe towards, or your palms towards one another, and send your knuckles towards the earth, towards the ground as you start to lift your chest. Option to lift the chin and open up through the throat if that feels good. Take one big inhale, filling up the entire low belly here, making it reach up to the chest, and then let all of that breath out on the exhale. Keep your fingertips interlaced and bring your hands over to your right hip. Push your right elbow directly out to the right side and push your right palm into your left palm, and have that action push the left hand, the left top of the hand, into your right hip bone. So we're using this arm to push into our hip bone. And with this action, you might find a little bit of activation and maybe some tight spots in your right shoulder. Take your left ear to your left shoulder. So it doesn't have to touch, but just that action of pulling away, getting a stretch through the right side of the neck. Once your ear is towards your right shoulder, maybe take your chin down just a little bit. Maybe take your chin up just a little bit. Micro movements here to see how the neck is feeling. And when you find a spot, feel free to stay in it. Maybe pull your chin, tuck your chin back into your throat a little bit, and maybe bop it out to see if any of those bring a little bit of extra activation there. Keep pushing with that right hand. Right elbow is pointing out to your side. And then when you're ready, come back through center. Release your grip, let your hands rest behind you, and then take your hands over to your left hip. So your left elbow is pointing out to your side, your left palm is pushing your right hand, your right palm, and that back of the right hand into your left hip. So we're finding a little bit of activation here through the left shoulder, the left arm as it's actively pushing. And then take your right ear to your right shoulder. So you might feel a little bit of the same stretch, you might feel something different. Continue breathing here into the belly, again letting the chest rest today. Sometimes when we breathe into our chest, mostly our chests get tight and they pull on our upper back, upper neck muscles, making those a little more sore and also tight. Maybe take your chin down in this once your ear is there. Maybe take your chin up a little bit. Finding small controlled movements. Maybe you take your chin back in towards your neck, towards the back of the head, then out, and then in. But again, very, very small controlled movements. And when you're ready, come back up through center, release your hands, and bring your feet to a cross-legged or seated position once again. We'll finish off with the same shoulder circles that we started off in the beginning. Inhale to squeeze your shoulders up towards your ears, and then take the exhale to bring them down, around, and back. Keep your chin tucked in. Make sure you're not kind of flexing through the back of the neck. Crown of the head is reaching up towards the sky. sitting bones are grounded. We'll inhale again once more to squeeze, and then back towards the back of the mat and then down. Feel free to do that one more time, a couple more times, or however often you want to now that we're at the end of the yoga class. But I'm going to bring my palms to touch and bring them to heart center. We'll take one more big breath in together. Inhale for 5, 4, 3, filling up the entire low belly, 2, 1. Hold it. Maybe take another sip of breath, bringing your chest into this, and then exhale for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much for joining me today. Sending love and light from my heart to yours. I hope to see you next time. Thanks again for joining me, friends. If you found this useful, please send this to anyone who you think might enjoy it. Save it to your own personal playlist here on YouTube so you can come back to it. Feel free to leave me a comment. I'd love to know how these went for you. Again, thank you so much. I appreciate every single one of you. I'll see you next time.